I thought I knew my husband better than anyone. Then I unlocked his safe, and my life collapsed. It started with a rattle in the wall. Not a mouse, not the house settling the way old houses do when Ohio winters gnaw at their bones. This was different. Hollow, metallic, a faint clink that traveled through the studs every time the dryer thumped. I was in the laundry room, the one Walter paneled himself in 1993, when the shelf above the detergent shivered just enough to tilt a jar of clothespins. The jar slid, bounced, and a single brass pin rolled into a hairline crack between the molding and the wall. When I knelt to fish it out, I felt air. Cold air, where there shouldn't be any. I pressed my palm against the paneling, and the board eased back a fraction. Walter had always loved little puzzles, false bottoms in jewelry boxes, a trick latch on the cedar chest, the way he'd hide Easter baskets in the attic beams. "Life needs a little wonder," he used to say, tapping the side of his nose. He never told me there was wonder in our laundry room. The panel gave with a soft sigh, revealing a shallow cavity. Inside sat a metal lockbox the color of a winter storm, paint scuffed around the corners, a thin film of lint clinging to its edges. I recognized it at once. The safe. Not a vault with a dial. No, Walter had trusted practical things. This was the same safe he brought home the year Michael broke his arm and we decided wills were for grown-ups, and we were finally growing up. I have asked him about it then. "What will you keep in there?" "Documents," he said. "Boring things. You'd fall asleep if I listed them." And he smiled that tired Sunday afternoon smile, the one that made me put the kettle on and let him nap on the couch with a baseball game humming low. After he died, I looked for the safe once, early in the grief, when everyone tells you to gather papers, titles, policies, the map of a life. I couldn't find it. I decided the hospice fog had swallowed the memory. But there it was, humming its quiet metal hum in the wall behind my dryer, as bold as a secret only half ashamed of itself. My hands shook. I set the box on the folding table and dug through the junk drawer, the museum of our marriage, until I found the key ring with a flat, anonymous brass key, unmarked. It slid into the lock like it had been waiting 3 decades for this moment. A soft click. The lid lifted. I expected passports, a birth certificate, maybe the deed to the house Walter swore would outlive us. What hit me first was scent. Old paper, a whisper of cedar, and the faintest trace of his aftershave, the one he wore only on Sundays and anniversaries. Then I saw them, bundles of letters bound with thin twine, edges brown like toast. On top lay a single envelope, my name written in Walter's neat hand. Evelyn. My heart knocked so hard I had to sit. I traced the letters. His E always looped proud at the top, the Y that never quite touched the line. He'd written my name 1,000 times, on grocery lists, on postcards from the lake, on the first note he left me on our honeymoon, tucked under a glass of orange juice. Back in 5, don't forget sunscreen. This version of my name felt heavier, as if ink itself could carry sorrow. I opened the envelope. Inside, 1 page, no date. "If you found this, I failed to tell you in person. Forgive me for that first, if you can. Some truths feel like mercy until they rot into cowardice. I never wanted to hide. I wanted to protect. You, Michael, what we built." I had to stop reading because the words blurred, water rising where pride had been. I wiped my eyes with the heel of my hand and kept going. "There are letters beneath this one. They will hurt. They will also explain. Whatever happens next, remember the beginning. Remember the way you laughed when the pie burned and we ate it anyway. Remember that I meant to fix the roof the week the storm came, and you held the ladder while the wind tried to take us both. I loved you, Evelyn. That part was true in every weather. My mouth went dry. Beneath his letter, 3 stacks, one tied with blue thread, one with red, one with plain string. The blue bundle bore a name I didn't know. The red bundle bore a place I knew too well, Maple Glen Savings and Loan. And the plain one was marked with a year that felt like a bruise when I read it. 1995. The year the bakery nearly folded. The year Walter started staying late at the shop to help with inventory, and I pretended not to notice how inventory leaves no flour on a shirt. I rested my hands on the metal, grounding myself in cold reality. All right, I whispered to the empty room, to the humming dryer, to the memory of a man whose laugh I could still summon in detail. If we're going to break, we break clean. Outside, a train mourned its way through town, long and low. I untied the blue thread. The twine snapped with a sound far too loud for the stillness of the laundry room. My fingers hesitated over the first letter, the paper thin as onion skin, fragile enough to tear if I breathed wrong. The envelope was addressed not to me, but to a name I had never seen in my 40 years with Walter. Clara Bennett. The handwriting was unmistakable. Walter's neat, methodical script. He always wrote like a man who feared the world might misread him if he hurried. I unfolded the page, my stomach rolling like a storm front. Clara. I told myself this was harmless, that a cup of coffee, a walk by the river, a hand I shouldn't have held wouldn't undo everything I swore to Evelyn. But when you laughed, something in me shifted. It felt like opening a door I had bricked over years ago. I don't know if I'll ever step through, but I know the door is there now, and it terrifies me. I read the words twice, then a third time, each pass slicing deeper. Walter had confessed to temptation, to a woman's laugh that cracked the walls of our marriage. Clara Bennett. The name meant nothing to me, yet it throbbed like a wound. I dropped the letter onto the table, the paper trembling with the hum of the dryer. My hands went to the next envelope, praying the first had been a lapse, a single moment of weakness. But the second letter was worse. Clara. Last night, you asked me why I stay. Why a man who feels this much for someone would not run. The answer is Evelyn. She is my compass, even when I lose the map. She is the mother of my son. She is the reason I breathe. But you? God help me. You are the reason my heart still beats fast. I'm split in two, and I fear one half of me will kill the other. The words blurred again, tears stinging my eyes. My chest ached with the betrayal of it. He hadn't left. He hadn't broken the vows. But he had loved another, even if only in words. And that love had lived here, hidden in my laundry wall, breathing dust for 30 years. I pressed the letters flat with trembling palms. How many? 10? 20? A year of secret correspondence? Each envelope bore dates that marched through the late 80s into the early 90s, a hidden calendar of another life. I whispered the name aloud, Clara Bennett, testing it on my tongue, tasting its bitterness. Who was she? Did she still live in Maple Glen? Was she buried in our cemetery, her stones sitting smug and silent every time I laid flowers for Walter?
The dryer buzzed, startling me so hard the letters slid to the floor. I gathered them in a heap, hugging them to my chest like children I didn't want but couldn't abandon. Then my eyes caught the second bundle, the one tied in red thread. Maple Glen Savings and Loan. My pulse hammered. If the blue bundle was betrayal of the heart, what was the red? I reached for it, but a sound stopped me. Tires crunching in the driveway. Michael. My son was home early. Panic surged. I shoved the letters back into the safe, slammed the lid, and pushed the panel into place just as the back door opened. Michael's boots thudded against the linoleum. "Mom." His voice carried a weight I couldn't read. Tired, strained, older than he should have been at 42. I wiped my face with the back of my sleeve, forcing steadiness into my voice. "In here." He stepped into the laundry room, eyes scanning me. "You all right? You look pale." I forced a smile. "Just the heat from the dryer." But his gaze lingered on me, sharp and suspicious, as if he knew walls had shifted in this house, and not just the one behind the detergent shelf. Michael leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching me too closely. He had Walter's shoulders, broad but sloped with time, and Walter's habit of squinting when he didn't trust what he saw. "You sure nothing's wrong?" he asked again. I forced my hands to stay still, though they itched to wipe away the sweat at my temples. "Nothing a glass of water won't fix. How was work?" He shrugged, his eyes still fixed on me. "Same as always. Customers think they know more than the mechanic. Sometimes I wonder why I even bother." I smiled faintly. "You bother because you're good at it, and because your father taught you never to leave a job half done." The mention of Walter softened his expression, but only for a breath. Then the squint returned. "Funny you say that. I was just thinking about Dad today." My heart skipped. "Oh, yeah, about that old safe he used to keep. You remember it? Metal, gray, the size of a shoebox?" My blood turned to ice. I swallowed, praying my face didn't betray me. "Vaguely," I said. "Didn't he keep old insurance papers in there?" Michael tilted his head. "That's what he told you?" The room tilted. I steadied myself against the folding table. "What do you mean?" He pushed off the doorframe and stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Dad came to me once, years ago, before he passed. He told me if anything ever happened to him, there were things in that safe I'd need to know. He said not to let you carry it alone." The words landed like stones in my chest. Walter had prepared Michael, prepared him for secrets, but not me. "And you never told me this?" I asked, the edge in my voice sharper than I intended. Michael's gaze dropped to the floor. "I figured he was just worried. You know how he was, always making backups of everything. I thought it was bills, contracts, boring stuff. I didn't think it mattered."
The letters in the blue bundle burned in my memory. Clara Bennett. They mattered. Michael straightened suddenly, as if realizing something. His eyes darted to the laundry wall, to the panel I had just sealed. He narrowed his gaze. "You didn't find it, did you?" I forced my voice to steady. "Find what?" He stepped closer still, his presence heavy. "The safe. Tell me you didn't." I turned away, fumbling for a basket of folded towels. "Michael, the only thing I've found today is too much laundry." But he wasn't fooled. He knew. I saw it in the tight line of his jaw, the restless way his hands flexed. For a moment, silence stretched between us, sharp and unbearable. Then he sighed, long and weary. "Mom, if you did find it, be careful. Some things in there aren't meant for daylight." Before I could respond, he grabbed his jacket from the chair and walked out, the back door slamming hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood in the echo of his departure, clutching the towels to my chest. Some things aren't meant for daylight. The words sank into me like poison, and I knew with cold certainty that whatever lay in the red bundle marked Maple Glen's savings and loan had Michael's shadow all over it. The house seemed louder after Michael left. Every tick of the kitchen clock, every groan of the floorboards above, felt like the house itself was asking questions I didn't want to answer. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the closed safe on the counter. My hands hovered over it, trembling. The blue bundle had already cracked the foundation of my marriage in ways I could never repair. But the red bundle, the one stamped with Maple Glen Savings and Loan, felt heavier, as if the twine alone was soaked in secrets. Walter's letter warned me, they will hurt. He hadn't lied. I pulled the bundle free. The knot fought me, stubborn, as if daring me to stop. When it finally gave, I braced myself. The first letter wasn't to Clara. It wasn't to anyone at all. It was a formal notice from the bank, dated 1995, the year the bakery nearly collapsed. I remembered it vividly. Bills stacking like bricks, customers thinner than usual, me crying into a ledger at midnight while Walter swore he'd find a way. The notice was cold, bureaucratic. Final demand, mortgage arrears, foreclosure pending. I felt my breath leave me. Foreclosure. Walter had never told me we'd come that close to losing the house. I thought the bakery struggles were ours to carry together. Instead, he had carried more alone, so much that he hid letters like this in a safe where I wouldn't find them. The second document made my hands sweat. A check stub, $50,000, withdrawn from an account I didn't recognize. At the bottom was a name, Clara Bennett. My chest tightened. Walter hadn't just written her letters. He had taken money, our money, and tied her name to it. I flipped through more pages. Promissory notes, hand-scribbled IOUs, agreements signed not by Walter's name, but some shell initials, WJR. It was him, but hidden, disguised. Each page revealed a man I didn't know, a man who gambled our future on secrets. And then, tucked at the bottom, a letter in Walter's hand, addressed to me, but never sent. Evelyn, the bank nearly took everything. I went to Clara because she had what I didn't. Money, connections, a way out. She offered help, but not freely. I owed her more than I ever should have. If I lose your trust, it won't be because of what I felt. It will be because of what I owed. And I can't undo it now.
The room spun. Clara hadn't just been a temptation of the heart. She had been the price tag on our survival. My husband's loyalty, my home, maybe even the bakery, all mortgaged against the woman I had never met. I shoved the bundle back into the safe and locked it with shaking hands. My pulse thundered in my ears. That was when headlights swept across the window. Tires crunched in the gravel drive again. But it wasn't Michael's truck this time. A sleek, black sedan idled outside, engine purring like a predator. The driver's door opened and a woman stepped out. Even in the dim porch light, I knew. Her posture was proud, her coat expensive, her hair silver but strong. She didn't knock. She just stood there, staring through the window, her eyes locking onto mine with a calm, unshakable certainty. Clara Bennett. For a moment, I couldn't move. My breath caught in my throat as if the very sight of her had stolen it. The name I had whispered in fear, the ghost I had pieced together from letters and debts, Clara Bennett, was suddenly flesh and bone, standing on my porch like she had every right to be there. She didn't ring the bell. She didn't knock. She simply raised one gloved hand and tapped once on the glass pane of the front door. Tap, just enough to make my heart leap. I stayed frozen in the kitchen, the safe behind me still warm from my hands. But Clara's eyes found me through the shadows. She saw me. Her lips curved, not quite a smile, not quite a sneer, something colder. I forced myself up, my knees trembling, and opened the door. "Mrs. Roberts," she said, her voice smooth, practiced, the kind of voice that sold lies for a living. "Or do you prefer Evelyn?" Hearing my name on her tongue made me feel exposed. "It's Mrs. Roberts," I answered stiffly. "What do you want?" Her eyes flicked past me to the laundry room door that wasn't fully closed. My stomach dropped. She knew. Somehow, she knew. "I believe you found something that belongs to me," she said softly, her gaze steady, unwavering. "Walter kept things, important things, that I entrusted to him. Now that he's gone, they should be returned." Every muscle in my body tensed. "I don't know what you're talking about." Clara's laugh was low, humorless. "Please, Evelyn, don't insult me. Walter promised me protection. He promised me discretion. Clearly, you've broken into places you shouldn't have." My fists clenched at my sides. "Protection? You nearly cost me my home. My husband stole from me to give to you." Her expression didn't falter. "Walter didn't steal. He borrowed, and he paid with interest." She leaned closer, her perfume sharp, invasive. "But you still have something of mine, a file, a contract, and I'm here to take it back." Behind me, the safe seemed to hum with weight, the Maple Glen documents, the check stubs, the evidence. I shook my head. "There's nothing here for you." Her smile widened, sharp as glass. "Then I'll give you one night, Mrs. Roberts. Tomorrow at this time, I will return, and if what I'm owed isn't waiting for me, I won't knock again. I'll come with others, and they won't be as polite." Her words chilled me to the marrow. She turned without waiting for an answer, her heels clicking against the porch like a countdown. The sedan's engine roared and she was gone, taillights disappearing into the dark. The silence that followed was suffocating. I locked the door with shaking hands, bolted it twice, and leaned against it until my knees gave way. Walter's secrets had been mine for less than a day, and already they had drawn Clara Bennett to my doorstep. And worse, the way she looked at me, with certainty, with ownership, made me realize something terrifying. This wasn't the first time she'd been here. I couldn't sleep that night. The house groaned and shifted like an old ship, every creak of the floorboards making me jolt awake. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Walter's voice echoing in my memory. "They will hurt." He hadn't been warning me about the letters. He'd been warning me about Clara. At 3 a.m., I gave up on rest and went downstairs. The kitchen smelled faintly of coffee grounds from the pot I'd abandoned earlier. I sat at the table, the safe in front of me like a second heartbeat. My hands hovered over the dial, then pulled away. If Clara knew about the safe, if she knew about the Maple Glen papers, then she must know what power they held. But why? What could possibly be in those contracts and IOUs that mattered 30 decades later? I reached for the red bundle again, desperate. One page caught my eye I hadn't noticed before, folded inside a mortgage notice. A notarized contract. Walter's signature beside Clara's. The words chilled me. Transfer of beneficiary rights. Roberts Bakery Holdings. My bakery. My life's work. He had nearly signed it away to her. The contract wasn't stamped complete, no notary seal, but the intent was there. He had been willing. The rage surged so hard I slammed my fist against the table. The sound echoed through the empty house. And then, footsteps on the porch. My heart leapt. Too soon. She wasn't supposed to come until tomorrow. I moved quietly, inching toward the window. A figure stood outside in the moonlight. Not Clara. Taller, broader shoulders. My breath caught until I saw the familiar outline. Michael. He wasn't knocking. He was pacing, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, his jaw tight. After a moment, he lit a cigarette, something I hadn't seen him do since high school. I opened the door. "Michael, what are you doing here?" He startled, then exhaled smoke into the night. "Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd check on you." His eyes drifted past me, into the kitchen, to the table, to the safe. "You opened it," he said flatly. Not a question, a verdict. I froze. Michael. He pushed past me, stepping into the kitchen, towering over the safe like it was prey. What did you find? I swallowed. Things you don't want to know. He laughed bitterly. Don't I? Because I already know some. Dad wasn't who you think he was. The words burned. And what do you know, Michael? That your father nearly gave away my bakery? That he was writing love letters to another woman while I was raising you? His jaw clenched, but his eyes betrayed something else. Guilt. What did you do? I whispered. He didn't answer. He sat down heavily, rubbing his temples. Mom, if you've got the documents, if you've got the proof, then you're in danger. Clara doesn't forgive. And she doesn't forget. The cigarette smoldered between his fingers, the smoke curling like a warning. She'll come back. And when she does, you'll wish you never opened that wall. Michael's words hung in the kitchen like smoke. His eyes, Walter's eyes, but darker, hardened, wouldn't meet mine. He stubbed the cigarette out in the sink, grinding the ember into ash as if it were a habit he'd never quite shaken.
What do you mean she doesn't forgive? I asked, my voice trembling more than I wanted. Michael exhaled sharply, a sound between a sigh and a curse. Clara Bennett isn't just some woman Dad had a fling with. She's connected. She's had her hands in half the town since the 80s. Land deals, loans. Even the damn courthouse owes her favors. When Dad got involved with her, it wasn't just about love or lust. It was business. Dangerous business. My knees weakened, and I sank into the chair across from him. And you knew? His jaw tightened. I knew enough. I was 20 when Dad asked me to drive him to meetings. He'd go into her office with a folder, come out pale as a ghost. Told me never to speak of it. Said it was about protecting the bakery, about protecting you. I pressed a hand to my forehead, the weight of betrayal pressing heavier with every word. Protecting me by signing away my life's work? Michael's eyes finally flicked up to mine. He never went through with it. You still have the bakery, don't you? That means Dad fought her off. But she doesn't forget debts, Mom. And now, he gestured toward the safe. Now you've got the receipts. Proof she's not clean. Proof she could bury this whole town if the right eyes saw it. The room fell silent except for the tick of the wall clock. For years, I'd thought Walter had been an honest man, flawed but faithful, carrying our burdens quietly. Now I saw him as something else, a man caught in a trap, leaving me the mess to clean after death. Michael leaned forward, lowering his voice. Clara's not just coming back for papers. She's coming to erase anyone who knows they exist. That means you. That means me. The words sent a shiver down my spine. Then we go to the police. He laughed, sharp, bitter. And tell them what? That Walter Roberts, the town's golden boy, left behind love letters and shady contracts with a woman who still bankrolls the mayor's campaigns? You think they'll protect us? They'll hand her the papers back on a silver platter. I stared at him, the weight of hopelessness pressing me down. Then what do we do? Michael stood, restless, pacing the kitchen like a man trapped in his own skin. We burn it. All of it. Every letter, every contract. Erase the evidence before she can use it or kill us for it. The idea stabbed at me. Burn Walter's words? Burn the proof of everything he hidden? It felt like killing him all over again. No, I said, my voice firmer than I expected. If Walter left these for me, if he hid them where only I would find them,
Then he wanted me to see the truth. Destroying them means letting Clara win. Michael slammed his fist against the table, making the safe rattle. Then she will win, Mom, because you don't know her like I do. I rose to my feet, my voice shaking but strong. Then tell me what she's capable of. Michael turned toward me, his face shadowed, and for the first time, I saw real fear in my son's eyes. She had a man killed once, Mom. And everyone knew it, but nobody proved it. If she thinks you're standing in her way, she won't hesitate to make you disappear. The words landed like a punch to my chest. I staggered back, gripping the counter for balance. Killed? I whispered, hardly able to force the word past my lips.
Michael nodded grimly, his face pale in the kitchen light. A contractor back in '93. He was building the new courthouse wing. Rumor was he found out Clara was laundering money through the project. He threatened to go public. 2 weeks later, he was dead. Accidental fall from scaffolding. Everyone in town knew it was staged, but no one dared say a word. His wife left town the next day, terrified. I pressed my trembling hands flat against the counter. For decades, Clara Bennett had been a name on paper, a ghost in Walter's letters. Now she was flesh and blood, with blood on her own hands. Michael leaned closer, his voice low and urgent. Mom, listen to me. We need to get rid of the papers. If she finds out you're keeping them, she won't just knock politely again. She'll come with lawyers, police, help, maybe worse. And nobody will side with us. Nobody. I shook my head. And what happens when she keeps squeezing us anyway? What happens when she takes the bakery, the house, everything your father worked for? No, Michael, burning them doesn't stop her. It just erases our leverage. His eyes flashed with frustration. Leverage? Against Clara? Mom, that's like holding a matchstick against a hurricane. She'll blow right through you. I thought of Walter's shaky handwriting, his warning. They will hurt. Maybe he hadn't hidden the papers to protect me from finding them. Maybe he had hidden them so that one day, if Clara came for me, I'd be armed. I won't burn them, I said quietly but firmly. They're the only power I have left. Michael cursed under his breath, running a hand through his hair. You don't understand, Mom. By keeping them, you're dragging me into this too. And if Clara finds out I helped Dad deliver things, she'll think I've got copies. She'll come after me as well. The thought sliced through me. Then leave, I said quickly, the words tasting like acid. Go stay with your sister in Chicago. Get out while you can. Michael froze, his jaw tightening. You really think she won't follow me? You really think distance will stop her? He slammed his palm against the safe again. This is bigger than you, Mom. Bigger than me. Dad should have destroyed it all when he had the chance. His anger filled the kitchen until I could hardly breathe. Finally, he grabbed his jacket and stormed toward the door. I can't watch you dig your own grave. When she comes back, and she will, don't say I didn't warn you. The door slammed, leaving the house trembling in his wake. I sat down heavily at the table, my heart racing, the reg bundle spread out before me like cursed treasure. The silence pressed in, thick and suffocating. Then from the corner of my eye, I noticed something I'd missed before, a small, sealed envelope tucked inside the red bundle, addressed in Walter's handwriting. For Eveline, only when you cannot trust Michael. My blood ran cold. The envelope felt heavier than paper had right to. My hands shook as I turned it over, Walter's handwriting staring at me like a voice from the grave. For Eveline, only when you cannot trust Michael. I pressed the seal between my fingers, my heart hammering. Walter had hidden letters to a lover, contracts with a predator like Clara, and now this. A warning about our own son. For a long moment, I just sat there, the house too quiet, the ticking clock suddenly cruel. Could I really believe it? Michael was flawed,
angry, bitter, but he was my boy, my flesh and blood. Yet Walter, the man I had shared a bed with for 40 years, had left behind a doubt so strong he sealed it in an envelope for me. Finally, I tore it open. Inside was a single page. Walter's script filled the lines, shaky but deliberate. Evelyn, if you are reading this, then either I am gone or the storm I feared has finally come. You know about Clara by now. You know what she holds over me and maybe over Michael too. I must tell you the truth. Michael was not just my driver when I met Clara. He was my shield. He carried documents for me. He delivered letters. At times, he even signed papers in my place. Clara liked it that way. It tied him to her as well. If I ever backed out, she could ruin him as easily as me. I don't know if Michael acted out of loyalty to me or out of something else, but I know he hides things from you. If he is still tangled with Clara, do not trust him. Use the documents against her, but never hand them to him. If you do, we both lose everything. I dropped the letter, my throat tight. My son, my Michael, caught in the same web as Walter. Maybe willingly, maybe not. But Walter's warning was clear. If I trusted Michael with the papers, Clara would win. The kitchen light flickered, startling me. My hand scrambled to gather the papers, shoving them back into the bundle, back into the safe. I spun the dial until the lock clicked, then pressed the panel into place. And not a moment too soon. The sound of tires on gravel. A car pulling up outside. I rushed to the window, my heart pounding. It wasn't Michael's truck. It wasn't Clara's sleek black sedan. It was two cars, dark, unmarked, pulling up one after the other. Doors opened. Men in suits stepped out, broad shoulders, blank faces, the kind of men who didn't introduce themselves. One of them scanned the house slowly, his gaze settling on the very window where I stood frozen. Then he spoke to the others. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. They weren't here for a visit. They were here for the papers. And for me. I ducked away from the window, my back pressed hard against the wall, heart slamming so loud I was sure they could hear it from outside. My breath came shallow, ragged as I tried to think. 2 cars, 4, maybe 5 men, not neighbors, not police, Clara's men. Walter's words burned in my head. They will hurt. The front porch groaned under their weight. A heavy knock shook the door. Not polite, not patient. "Mrs. Roberts," a voice called, low and commanding. "We know you're inside. We just want to talk." Talk. My stomach knotted. Men like that didn't talk. They took. I backed into the kitchen, my hands trembling, my eyes darted to the phone. Call the police? But Michael had warned me they'd side with Clara. By the time they arrived, the papers would be gone, and so would I.
The knock came again, harder this time, rattling the glass panes. I forced my shaking legs to move, crossing the kitchen to the laundry room. The safe sat hidden again behind the panel, but I felt its weight pulling me like gravity. If they got inside, they'd tear the house apart until they found it. I grabbed the bundle, stuffed it into an old flour sack, and tied it shut. If they came for me, they wouldn't get the papers. Not easily. The knock turned into pounding. "Mrs. Roberts, open up or we open it for you." My body shook. "Walter,
Why did you leave this to me? Why didn't you burn it all when you had the chance? The back door creaked suddenly, hinges whining. My blood froze. They weren't waiting. One of them had slipped around back. I bolted for the stairs, the sack clutched against my chest. The floorboards groaned beneath my feet as I reached the landing. Below me, the front door gave a splintering crack. They were inside. I stumbled into the attic ladder, yanking it down with trembling hands. The old wood protested, but it held. I scrambled up, pulling the ladder behind me just as footsteps thundered through the hall below. The attic smelled of cedar and dust, a place I hadn't set foot in for years. Moonlight streamed through a small window illuminating old trunks, yellowed quilts, and boxes of forgotten Christmas ornaments. I shoved the flour sack into the corner beneath a moth-eaten blanket, my heart hammering. Voices rose below, sharp and impatient. Furniture scraped, doors slammed open. They were tearing through my home. Then a new sound. Boots on the stairs. Someone was coming up. I pressed myself into the shadows, clutching the beams, my breath shallow. The attic hatch creaked. A flashlight beam sliced through the dark. "Check up here," a man's voice muttered. The light swept dangerously close to where I crouched. I held my breath, every muscle screaming with the effort of staying still. Then from outside, a car engine roared. Tires squealed on gravel.
The men froze. One shouted down to the others. Through the attic window, I caught sight of headlights. Michael's truck barreling into the driveway like a storm. Michael's truck skidded sideways into the driveway, gravel spraying like sparks. The roar of the engine cut through the shouts in my house. From the attic, I peered out the small window, my chest tightening as I saw him fling open the driver's door and step out, shoulders squared, jaw set. "Get the hell away from my mother's house," Michael's voice thundered into the night. The men froze, their flashlights swinging, beams cutting jagged lines across the walls. One of them leaned out the front doorway. "This doesn't concern you, Roberts. Go back to your truck." But Michael didn't back down. He reached behind the seat of his pickup and pulled out a tire iron, gripping it like a weapon. "It damn well concerns me when strangers break into my family's home." The tension stretched, brittle as glass. I could hear the blood in my ears, feel the sweat dripping down my neck. From below, one of the men hissed, "Boss won't like this. Get him out of here before she hears." She. Clara. So it was true. She'd sent them. Michael took a step closer, swinging the iron once and warning, "Last chance, leave." The men muttered to each other. Then one barked, "Search the rest. If she's here, we drag her out. If not, we wait." Boots pounded up the stairs again. The attic hatch rattled. A flashlight beam stabbed into the dark, hunting. My breath caught as I pressed myself deeper into the shadows, praying the moth-eaten quilt over the sack looked like nothing more than trash. Michael's voice boomed from below, closer now. He'd forced his way inside. "Mom, where are you?" The men shouted, chaos erupting as he clashed with them. The sounds of the struggle echoed, thuds, curses, furniture crashing. The attic hatch shook violently. A hand gripped the edge, pulling it down. I braced myself, clutching a heavy wooden candlestick from an old trunk, my heart pounding. If they came up here, if they found me. But then, a gunshot split the air. Silence followed, thick and terrifying. "Michael!" I screamed before I could stop myself. The attic hatch slammed shut again, the men's voices urgent now. "She's up there! Grab her!" I scrambled backward, clutching the candlestick, my body trembling. Through the thin floorboards, I could hear Michael groaning, his voice strained. And then over it all, another voice, calm and cutting through the chaos like a knife. "Enough." It was her, Clara Bennett. She was here.
Her voice sliced through the noise like glass underfoot, measured, calm, and chilling. Even after 30 years of being nothing more than a name on paper, Clara Bennett's presence filled the house as if she owned it. "Stand down," she commanded. And they did. The footsteps paused, the attic hatch no longer rattling. Even Michael's groans softened into silence, as though fear itself had gripped the air. I crouched in the attic, the candlestick heavy in my hands, my heart a jackhammer. Through the thin floorboards, I could hear her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, each step deliberate, each one daring me to breathe. "Evelyn," she called, her tone almost sweet. "You've been busy." I clenched my jaw. "You opened the safe. You've read what Walter kept from you. I told you yesterday I'd return, but you didn't wait, did you? Curiosity always gets the better of people." Michael's voice rose, hoarse but furious. "Leave her out of this, Clara."
Her laugh was low, almost indulgent. "Oh, Michael, you still think you can protect her? After all the errands you ran for your father? You think I don't have every receipt, every signature you forged?" Silence. My breath caught. Walter's letter, his warning about Michael, flashed through my mind. Clara's heels clicked closer, stopping right below the attic hatch. "Evelyn, I'll make this simple. Hand down the papers, the contracts, everything Walter stashed away. Do that, and maybe I forget you meddled in business that doesn't concern you." I tightened my grip on the candlestick, forcing my voice steady. "And if I don't?" Her silence was louder than a shout, then cool and sharp. "Then you'll lose more than your bakery. You'll lose your son." I couldn't stop myself. I shouted. My voice cracked, raw with rage. "You already tried." A pause. Then her calm reply. "He's still breathing, isn't he? My men know restraint. Next time, perhaps they won't." Michael groaned again, and my heart twisted. I wanted to rush down, to cradle him, to drag him out of this house. But the sack of papers sat behind me like an anchor. Walter's words, Michael's warning, Clara's threats, they all pulled me in opposite directions. Clara spoke again, her voice rising, filling the house. "You have one choice, Evelyn. Protect your son or protect Walter's ghosts. Decide now." The men stirred below, boots shifting, hands brushing against holsters. Time was slipping like sand. I closed my eyes, Walter's letter echoing in my head. "Do not trust Michael. Use the documents, but never hand them to him." But Clara was right below me, waiting, her patience razor thin. I opened my eyes, staring at the sack hidden beneath the quilt. My breath came fast, sharp. I knew I had to act. The attic pressed in around me, every shadow sharp, every breath jagged. Clara waited below like a predator, her patience running thinner than the second. Michael groaned, his voice a ragged whisper. "Mom, don't." His warning tangled in my chest. Don't what? Don't give her the papers? Don't trust her? Or don't trust him, just as Walter had written? My hands shook as I pulled the flour sack from under the quilt. The weight of it nearly dragged me to my knees. Contracts, IOUs, love letters, debts, 30 years of secrets bundled in rough fabric. Walter's sins, Clara's leverage, my choice. The hatch rattled once more. A man's voice snapped, "She's stalling." Clara's heels tapped once against the floorboards. A signal. Her tone turned sharp, cutting. "Evelyn, I don't repeat myself. Papers, or your son bleeds out right here." I crawled toward the hatch, sack clutched in my fists. The candlestick lay forgotten on the floor. My body trembled as I pulled the cord, lowering the ladder inch by inch.
Gasps rose from the men below as they caught sight of me. I felt their eyes like knives. Clara stepped into view, her face lit by the beam of a flashlight. She was older, silver hair gleaming, but her presence was iron, cold, beautiful in a dangerous way. "Smart woman," she said softly. Her hand reached up, palm open, waiting. "Give them to me, and this ends."
I hesitated. Walter's final note burned in my mind. If you trust Michael, we both lose everything. But maybe Walter was wrong. Maybe the real mistake was ever trusting Clara. I glanced past her, at Michael. He was slumped against the wall, blood on his shirt but eyes still sharp, still locked on mine. His lips moved, barely a whisper. "Don't. Mom, don't." My heart clenched. And then I made my choice. I swung the flour sack hard, not down into Clara's waiting hand, but across the attic floor into the window. The glass shattered with a scream, shards flying into the night. The bundle tumbled out, spilling into the dark yard below. Clara's calm shattered in an instant. "No!" she shrieked, lunging forward. Chaos erupted. The men scrambled, two rushing outside to retrieve the sack, others grabbing for the ladder. Michael surged forward with a roar, slamming his shoulder into one of them, knocking the flashlight spinning across the floor. I yanked the ladder up, slamming the hatch shut, locking myself in with the shards of glass glittering like stars. My chest heaved, my body shaking. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked. Lights flicked on in houses down the street. Voices rose, calling out. Clara's men shouted, cursing as they scattered. But Clara's voice cut through it all, sharp as a blade. "You've made a mistake, Evelyn. This isn't over. You hear me? This isn't over." Her words seared into me as boots thundered out the door, the sound of engines roaring to life. Then silence. I stayed crouched in the attic, glass cutting into my knees, staring at the hole where the sack had fallen. Somewhere in the night, Walter's secrets lay scattered in the grass, and Clara Bennett would come back for them. The night was electric with silence after the engines roared away. My lungs burned as I drew in shallow breaths, ears straining for any sign they might return. Below, Michael groaned again, his voice barely carrying through the floorboards. "Mom, are you still up there?" I pushed the hatch open an inch, peering down. The kitchen was a wreck, chairs overturned, a lamp shattered. Michael was slumped against the wall, clutching his side where blood seeped through his shirt. His face was pale, but his eyes met mine with stubborn fire. "I told you not to trust her," he rasped. I lowered the ladder carefully and scrambled down, landing hard on my knees beside him. My hands fumbled uselessly at the wound. "You need a doctor," I whispered. He caught my wrist, his grip surprisingly strong for a man bleeding on my floor. "No hospital. Clara owns half the staff. You take me there, I don't come out." My throat tightened. "Then what do we do?" Michael tilted his head toward the broken window above. "The papers. Did they get them?" I hesitated. The sack had spilled into the yard, but in the chaos, I couldn't tell what had been taken and what still lay hidden in the grass. "Some, not all." His jaw clenched, sweat dripping down his temple. "Then listen carefully, Mom. Those papers, they're not just proof Dad was tangled with Clara. They're insurance. Names, dates, judges, every dirty deal she ever pulled. If you've got even half of them, you can bury her." The words stunned me. Walter hadn't just left behind guilt, he'd left a weapon.
Michael's grip tightened on my wrist, his eyes burning into mine. "But if she knows you still got some, she won't stop. She'll come again, next time with more men, next time with no witnesses." I looked around the wreckage of my kitchen, at the blood smeared across the tiles, at my son fighting to stay conscious. The weight of the choice pressed on me like a millstone. "Then we take them to the police," I whispered. Michael laughed bitterly, wincing at the pain. Mom, you still don't get it. The police work for her. If you hand those files over, they disappear into evidence rooms that answer to her pocketbook. Then what? My voice cracked. What do I do, Michael? Burn them? Hide them? Spend the rest of my life waiting for her to knock again? His eyes softened for a moment. The anger replaced by something raw. No, you go public. You don't hand them to men in uniforms or lawyers in offices. You hand them to everyone. Let the whole damn town see what she's done. That's the only way you survive this. The idea chilled me. To make Walter's secrets, the debts, the letters, the betrayals, public. To drag his name through mud in order to save my own skin. I can't destroy your father's memory like that, I whispered. Michael's hand slipped from my wrist, his strength fading. Then you'll destroy yourself instead. The room blurred with tears. My hands pressed against his wound, desperate to hold him here, to hold us together. But Clara's words rang in my ears. This isn't over. And I knew Michael was right. The only way to survive her was to drag her into the daylight she hated most. But could I do it? Could I expose Walter, my marriage, my son's past sins, all of it, for the world to see? The blood on my hands said I might not have a choice. The dawn came too fast. Pale light spilled across the wreckage of my kitchen, turning broken glass into shards of fire. Michael drifted in and out of consciousness, his head heavy against my shoulder. Every groan from him was a reminder that time was running out. I had gathered what scraps of the papers I could find in the yard. Some were gone, taken by Clara's men, but enough remained to paint a damning picture. Contracts with no seals, IOU signed in Walter's hand, names of judges, businessmen, council members, all tied to Clara Bennett. Each sheet trembled in my grip like it carried a pulse of its own.
Walter had kept them not out of guilt, not out of shame, out of fear, and maybe out of hope. Hope that one day they would be the only thing standing between us and Clara's claws. Michael stirred, his voice a ragged whisper. Mom, you have to finish it. You have to use them. I pressed a damp cloth against his wound, tears stinging my eyes. You need a doctor. He shook his head weakly. No, what I need is for you to end this. Don't let her win. His words were the echo of Walter's warning, but sharper, more urgent. I looked at my son, flawed, tangled in his father's mistakes, but still mine, still worth fighting for. I stood, gathering the papers into a folder, my hands trembling but steady enough to know what had to be done. Walter's secrets were no longer mine to guard. They belonged to daylight. The town library sat at the heart of Maple Glen, its community bulletin board covered in notices for bake sales, church picnics, and lost cats. By sunrise, it held something else. A thick envelope, sealed and labeled in bold letters, for the people of Maple Glen, the truth about Clara Bennett. I didn't wait to see who opened it. By noon, whispers had turned into shouts. By evening, the news spread across the county. Judges, bankers, businessmen, Clara's entire empire laid bare in black and white. And Clara herself? She didn't return to my doorstep. She didn't send more men. But her name filled every tongue in Maple Glen, no longer cloaked in respect or fear, but in shame. Michael recovered slowly. He never forgave Walter entirely, and maybe neither did I. But in the quiet nights, when the bakery smelled of sugar and yeast, I could almost hear Walter's voice again, not in guilt, not in warning, but in relief. Because in the end, his secrets hadn't destroyed me.
They had destroyed her. And for the first time in 30 years, my house was my own again.